This meeting is being recorded.
All right, the Seneca Healthcare District regular meeting is now in session at 3:01. And we will be meeting in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1, Government Code 54956.9D2, and Health and Safety Code 32106. Board members present. Ken is in the room with me, as is Ryan. Rich, are you on?
I'm on.
Oh, thank you. And I'm here, so we are all here. We will go ahead and go into the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, now we move into our public comment period. Is there any public comment to be made? Any?
I have
Anyone have
no
public-
online hands raised.
Okay. Any other public comment? All right, thank you. So with that, I'm actually going to move our agenda item number 10 next for the oath of office. That way we have our quorum for board members to vote moving forward throughout the agenda. So Rich, are you ready to do your oath?
I believe all I have to do is say I do, correct?
I don't know. Do we have to read the whole thing? I thought we had to read
Nope.
it.
They don't have to do that any longer.
Okay, well, Rich, do you solemnly swear?
I do.
Okay. Ryan, do you solemnly swear?
I do.
All right, that was easy. Thank you, Rich. Okay, next on the agenda, the approval of our regular board meeting minutes. Has the board had a chance to review? And if so, do we have any changes or motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, so moved. Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All right, all in favor, Rich,
Aye.
Ken,
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Thank you, and I'll vote aye. All right, next is our medical staff report. We have initial and reappointment for medical staff as well as for our allied health practitioners. Any comments, or I will accept a motion to approve?
I wanted a little clarification on one piece, just
Okay,
not sure I understood this. I thought I'd heard a few of these names in the report. Kurtz as an example that wasn't coming and now he is coming. I'm confused.
Which one is that?
What was his first name?
Bob Kurtz.
Bob Kurtz.
Oh, Bob, he is here.
He is here.
Yeah, he is now an employee. We granted him, we were doing 60 days and now we're granting him a year. He's a PA.
Right, well, I'm aware, but
He
I
is
thought
here.
he was gonna be here and then there was some word that he wouldn't be here.
No, he's here per diem. So
Okay.
he's filling in shifts, but he is an employee.
Okay, good. Thank you for that.
All right. Without absent anything else, I will accept a motion to approve the medical staff appointments.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Ryan.
I'll second it.
Neil second. Thank you, Ken. All right, all in favor, Ryan?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Thank you. All right, policies and procedures. We don't have any policies and procedures to review today. So moving on to number 9, the Amador Foundation contract. So the purpose of this contract is just to extend the existing one while we are in conversation with the Amador Foundation about what the new contract will be like going forward. So if we receive donations between now and when we get that new contract put together, there's a way for them to still accept them for us. So that's basically the reason for this extension. Do I have any questions or comments on it?
This is for the current contract?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's to extend it through until I think
It's a month.
February.
28th.
Yeah.
And I am, just so the board knows, I am probably 2/3 through the new contract. And I have to put it through legal and then it's going to go to the board. So hopefully we'll hit the timeline By the time this one ends, we'll
By
have.
February.
in place.
Yeah, we met with the Almanor Foundation, had a very good conversation with them about, everything that they were doing and what we needed and wanted from them, and so I think that,
The day of the week is February 28th.
Ah.
Is that going to be simultaneous with our next board meeting?
that's a good question, let's see. No, it will be prior to, but it won't be that. So, yeah, that will be, no, that'll be after as long as we have it by the 23rd of February.
Yeah, then we
Yeah,
can
we
vote
should
on
be,
it.
because
and
the
then
23rd is
go
when our
into
meeting
effect.
is.
Okay.
That's the question.
So I have, I gotta get the legal in a couple of weeks then for review, and then they have a review. So, okay, just kind of back into the timeline here. I gotta get cracking on that.
Okay. All right, anyone ready to do a motion to approve this extension?
I'll make a motion to approve the extension.
Thank you, Ryan. Do I have a second?
1 second.
Thank you, Ken. All in favor, Rich?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Thank you. Okay, so skipping the oath of office since we already did that. Next up is our interview for our candidate for our board member seat. I think Shelley Stelzner is attending via Zoom. And I'm hoping, we'll see if the board agrees, that we will wait to make the actual appointment until our January meeting in case we have other candidates who maybe didn't see the announcement over the holidays, since we do have a whole nother month before we actually have to make the decision. Is everyone
I think that's
comfortable
fair.
with that?
Yep.
Okay, Rich, does that sound okay with you as well?
I agree. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, do we have Shelley online?
I see Shelley's iPad right there.
Shelley, can you hear us? Having some technical difficulties?
Perhaps we can come back to it.
Jerry, this is TK. It doesn't appear that audio is associated with that iPad. So if for some reason she needs to call in, the number is 669-444-9171. Meeting ID is 861-9298-8649 with the passcode of 148822.
Will you say that one more time?
Is it possible to put that in the chat so that she could see it? TK?
Yeah, I'll try to do that. Also, I'll zip back up here on the agenda so she can have a visual while I'm getting that in the chat.
That works, thank you. All right, so for now, we will move on. We'll come back to that. So our annual board organizational meeting for our election and appointment of our officer positions. So as I neglected to remind myself, but I believe we have our president, vice president, secretary are elected, right? And then the treasurer and assistant secretary treasurer are appointed. Okay, thank you. All right, so with that, then I will open it up for conversation about who wants to do what.
Well, I'm just going to speak here because I'm very comfortable right now with the current appointments. So,
With the current appointments?
Yeah.
Okay,
I would agree.
okay. Rich, how do you feel?
Well, who was secretary last time? Wasn't that Dr. Walls?
Dr. Wall, secretary?
Vice President, or
No, he was vice president, I think,
Vice
yeah,
president.
right, yeah, we keep changing them, so I guess
Okay.
he's right. We do need a new vice president. Rich?
Okay.
I think you've been volunteered, Rich, how do you feel about it? Then he won't be our treasurer.
no, Rich is saying treasurer. Right?
Yeah, no, I
He's
think
got a
Rich-
number getting there.
Yeah, well, you wanna
Sure.
give it a go?
I mean, do I have to be nominated for it?
I'm nominating you.
I'll accept the nomination.
All right, thank you, Ryan. All right, do I have a second for,
I'll second it.
thank you, all in favor, Rich?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
You vote for yourself, Ryan?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Okay, so then that makes you our,
Secretary still.
here's our secretary still, perfect. Okay, so then our new board member will be our assistant secretary treasurer. Okay. And then at our next meeting, we should review our committee assignments. Deborah, if you don't mind putting that on the agenda for next time. Thank you. Okay, so moving right along, we have our October 2022 financial report. Steve, are you on?
I am, but if there's no objection, if I could have Gerald Tucker start his presentation and I'll go after him.
Sure, that sounds fine. Thank you. Gerald, are you on with us?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And see ya.
Oh, good.
Yes.
But I prefer to do these in person, but we have switched to one of the, I guess, extended outcomes of COVID is we're continuing to do a lot of these meetings remotely. Plus, I'm not sure how easy it would have been to travel up there. We had a number of relatives coming for Christmas, and they all experienced significant delays and cancellations, and it was a real mess trying to get everyone together this holiday season. But anyway, you should have in front of you the June 30, 2022 fiscal year end audit presentation. It's a 5-page document that kind of summarizes what I'm going to go over. And you should have also received the Seneca, the audited financial statements for the year ended June 30, 2022, a draft of those. So I'll go through the presentation. I think I'll hit most of the high points. And if you have any questions at all, please stop me and I can elaborate or answer as best I can, or I'm sure with Steve's help we can answer. But I want you to be completely comfortable with this so that when you're ready to vote on accepting the audit, we can move forward and get this issued and move on. So the first page of the audit presentation, the first 4 bullet items are items that have to be reported every year to the board. These are required. Oh, I probably should step back a second. Are there any new board members this year that haven't gone through an audit presentation in the past here at the hospital?
Have you?
When was the last audit presentation?
Been around this time
Would have been
last
about
year.
the same time last year.
I can't remember when you joined.
Not this time last year.
I think we have one, Gerald.
Okay, well then, just again, if you have any questions or need any clarification, let me know, and I'll try to be as informative as possible without taking a ton of time. So, as I said, the first 4 are items that the auditor is required to report to the board, for your information. And so, again, you have 2 documents. You have the financial, the audit presentation. Does everyone have the audit presentation in front of them?
Yes.
Yes.
We just threw them today.
And then the draft as well. So, all right, I'm on page 1 of 4. Starts off with financial audit results. And I see on the screen, that's the draft, actually draft audited financials that's on the screen. This is a different document, the audit presentation. Steve, were those sent out to make sure oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay, that's where I am. Page 1 of 4. So first one is you received an unmodified opinion. That's a clean opinion. That took the replace of the old clean opinion. I know unmodified. It sounds a little, I don't know. I think they could be a lot clearer in what they say here. But bottom line is clean opinion. No problems there. The second point, no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. And what that really, it relates to the internal controls. What that means is as we went through all of our testing of balances and of transactions and looking at all of the flow of documentation in the finance and accounting department of the hospital, we didn't find any, not only did we not find any errors, the hospital has a system in place that based on our evaluation is set up to catch any material or significant errors. And so no issues there. The last one, no reportable findings. If we find any finding of an illegal nature, falsified reporting or fraud or whatever, regardless of the amount, whether it's material or significant or not, we are required to report that to the board. We had no such findings. So that was, all clean in the audit work there. There were no audit adjustments. There were 4 late client entries. And again, maybe for the new board member, I'll just give a quick brief comparison of what those are. An audit adjustment is an adjustment that we find as the auditors, that it's gone through the hospital's checks and balances, they're through their internal controls, and they're still in error, and we find it, and we have to adjust the financials to be correct. And there were none of those. A late client entry is we get our audit started back in, we start like in August, September, and then we have to wait for a number of things to other agencies and other things to kind of be finished up. And these are adjustments that Steve makes during the audit and then gives to us. And so they're called late client entries. They're not audit entries. And those four, and the reason we track those is because this is what the difference is. This is what makes up the difference between the June financial statements that the preliminary ones that you saw from Steve several months back to what the audit says, if you're wondering why there's any difference. And here are the items that came up. There's a new operating lease reporting requirement that everyone has to follow this year. And if you have any operating leases that's for buildings or for equipment that have a remaining period of longer than a year, they have to have a special calculation done and they get put on the balance. There's no longer just a line item on the P&L for lease expense or rent expense. Now you have to do a present value calculation. You put an asset on the books, which is called a right of use asset. You've got an operating lease liability, current and long-term liability. And then some of that lease expense you had gets reclassed as interest expense because you basically convert it to basically long-term financing, like another piece of long-term financing. It's supposed to make the financial statements more transparent. Whether it does or not, that's up to debate, but you had to do it this year. And you can see that added $109,000 right of use asset, similar liability, no P&L effect. It just basically, you put the asset on, the liability on, and you do some reclasses on the P&L. So no P&L effect, but it does impact the balance sheet. I know that's a lot in a hurry, but if you have any questions on that, I can come back to that and give you more explanation. But suffice it to say, it's the new way we have to do these operating leases. District tax true up, that's something we do almost every year. It takes a while for the counties to finally get their property tax payments trued up, and you get that last little payment coming in after year end, and so that has to be accrued for when the county sends us, and that was a $31,000 income item. And again, this is a common thing. We're waiting for the workers' comp annual audit to be done. And they wrapped that up and actually had a favorable audit and got an $87,000 adjustment to pick up on the income. And then there was a payroll issue, getting the payroll accrual, the accrual corrected properly, and the taxes being paid and everything else. And so Steve was working on that when the audit started and then finished it up during the audit. And that included about $179,000 expense to get the payroll accrual. Yes, go ahead. Was there a question?
I don't think so.
No? Okay, good. All right, so those were the late client entries. No red flags. Those are all fairly common, well, quite common actually. And so no issues there. The fourth item, there were no difficulties encountered with management in performing our audit, had no disputes or disagreements with management during the course of the audit. And we rarely have any disagreements or difficulties. For instance, like this new right of use reporting, Steve and I talk about it, we kind of go through it, and he complies with the new the new requirements. And so, that we don't have any issues there. Steve complies with all of the, GAP and FASB and GASB reporting rules. And so we've never had any issues or disagreements, and he does a good job of following the requirements. And so we don't have any issues with the audit when we come in for any differences there. So those are the four items that have to be reported. Any questions on those four? It really is a good report card. It's a good, clean report card. This last hearing no questions. Moving on. This last item here is just going to touch base on some of the significant accounting items, auditing issues that we do see at the hospital. Make sure you know that we've accounted for these, or if you have any questions on them, kind of give you a little background on them. You still participate in a couple of IGT programs. The Prime IGT program, which is now completed and done. If you remember, you've been part of that for the last 5 years. You got your last and final payment on that, about $429,000, and that was properly recorded. And hopefully they'll come up with some new program that you can participate in going forward, but for now that's done. The IGT program continues to go forward. You still participate in that. That's where you pay money out, and then you get matching funds through the state and the feds, and it comes back in. And again, you paid about $841,000, and you received about $2.8 million. So you made about $2 million on the IGT program. And again, the IGT, even though it's money out, it's not classified as an expense on the financials. It's classified down below as intergovernmental transfer payment out. And so when you see the income statement, you see it down at the bottom there. Now you know what that is. COVID supplemental funding. That's kind of, it's kind of run its course now, and the hospitals, and including Seneca, are just kind of finishing up the reporting and the recording and recognizing of those funds. So during the year, your PPP loan was forgiven, so you had a $1.5 million pickup in income on the forgiveness of that loan, which is good. And you still have another $1 million sitting in the deferred revenue from HRSA grant money, provider relief funds that are brought in, and those will be expended over the next year, through this fiscal year, the remainder, when they have to meet the requirements of having to be used up, or they'll have to be returned like you did with some of the first phase money that you returned. But all of the reporting has been correct on that. Steve's done a good job of keeping track of that and reporting. We had a HRSA report, so he had to do reporting in the portal. HRSA set up a portal to actually report the expenditures of how that money, all those COVID provider relief funds were spent. All that was done in a timely manner. Then we had to do what was called a single audit filing through HRSA as well, and that was done. That was due back in September, and that was done properly as well. And so you're in line, and no issues with HRSA on all the COVID money that's flying around. The last item this year is you picked up about a little over $500,000 in settlement income on the Dixie Fire, and that was properly booked. Again, we went through the documentation. Steve had it all documented and sent off to the insurance company, and that was the first phase of payments from them for lost income and business interruption and extra expenses for that whole Dixie Fire. I think you guys had to actually either prepare for or actually had to shut down and transfer patients, right? You had to evacuate for a time. So that's what this is covering. I'm sure you guys have talked about that before, but anyway, any questions on those significant accounting auditing issues? I know we're going quick here. It's very common to me, but I want to make sure you're understanding it. I'm sure Steve has explained a lot of this in the past, and so. But if there's anything you want me to clear up, I'm happy to do that.
I think we're good, Gerald.
Okay, great. Thank you. So page 2, I know I kind of shuffle how the financial statements go. I start with the statement of operations or the income statement because that's what everyone always seems to care about the most. This is just a 3-year comparison. So you can kind of just do the math yourself and look at it. Net patient revenue has kind of just steadily declined over the last couple of years. That could be from a number of reasons, and you guys have probably gone into that, but suffice it to say that's where you are, about a little over $16.8 million in net patient revenue. Other revenue, the big drop or change in other revenue is last year. If you remember, you had that's where you had the majority of your provider relief funds were recognized. You had $4 million in provider relief funds recognized last year from COVID. This year, so far, no provider relief funds or just minimal provider relief funds were recognized. The big chunks in that 2.7 million were the Dixie Fire of a $500,000, and then your PPP loan. That's where the 1.5 million debt forgiveness income is in that number there, and district tax and others. So you see you had about a $20 million in in total revenue, down about 3 million, but 2 million of that is attributable to COVID money last year. Expenses, actually, compared to a lot of our clients, your expenses were, in some areas they were up, but for the most part, you controlled your expenses very well this year. A lot of hospitals experienced a significant increase in professional fees, purchase services with travelers and locums tenens, and then supplies went up significantly as well. But you have managed that well, and expenses are pretty much consistent with prior years. And then the bottom line is about $500,000. And again, it's down. Obviously, it's down quite a bit, but that's the main difference from last year to this year is that excess COVID money you had last year. And then you can see some of the percentages and ratios that we look at. Net income margin obviously is down, and that's again the difference with the drop in net income. The key ones though, deductions from revenue stayed very consistent at 35%. Bad debt stays very consistent at 2%. Kudos to Steve and to the revenue cycle management team, the billers, the patient managers and whatnot. They're doing a good job of getting things entered, billed, and collected. So that's always crucial for hospitals to stay financially stable, and you do a good job on that. You can see your labor and benefits, where a few other hospitals have ticked up a bit. You're staying pretty consistent with your labor and benefit costs as a percent of expenses and as a percent of net patient revenue. And then your supplies ticked up a little bit to 8%, not much, but it's a lot of, again, that's to be expected with inflation and a lot of other challenges that they've had in the on supplies and other healthcare related expenditures. But all in all, again, post-COVID, a pretty decent year, comparable with pre-COVID, and doing well. No red flags, no real issues that we see there with the statement of operations. Any questions? You guys are an easy crowd. Next page is the balance sheet, and again, it's pretty self-explanatory. You got last year and this year with changes. You can see you added another $1 million to your cash. Your cash and board days and your cash reserves. Patient AR stayed very consistent. Other receivables are down. Again, some COVID money and other things are no longer receivable. They've all been accounted for, and so receivables are down a little bit. You continue to add with property, equipment, projects, and whatnot, and so everything looks pretty straightforward there. AP's up a little bit. That a lot of that just is because of timing when the check runs are cut. I mean, each check run you do is probably over $1 million. And so it just depends on the timing and when the year end hits, but no issues there. And we, liability cutoff testing and liability testing was all clean, and payroll is consistent. I talked about the deferred revenue. So you received some of your last COVID money came in. So you see you've got $1 million of COVID money that you'll need to bring in during fiscal year 2023. Well, actually, and then the first half of 2024. So by the end of 2023, you'll have to have expended all this money and then claim it so that you don't have to pay any of it back. So that's where that's sitting. Third-party settlements, that's money owed on cost reports. That just, it is what it is. A lot of that depends on payer mix and volumes and different things. And so, and then how much you actually received in your payments. And so you've got a payment on that. And then your long-term debt, and you see the big drop in long-term debt again. The big drop was the 1.5 million in the PPP loan, which came off of your books this year. So again, current ratio still very strong. Debt service coverage is good. That went up significantly because PPP went off. Days, over $300 days cash on hand is very good. Net patient days in AR is down to 20. It's still at very last year 24 days, which is very very good as well. And your average pay period's under 30 at 28. So that's what we expect to see. So all in all, again, your financial position stayed very stable. You continue to add to your cash reserves. AR is being handled well. So again, no red flags. Actually, a good balance sheet. You had another good consistent year. The last one is just some comparisons that you can look at. That page 4, the first 2 years. That's your percentages and ratios. The peer hospital average is 3 of our clients at June 30, 2022 that are similar in size, critical access, payer mix. We try to find some that are successful, so that you can kind of match up and see how you're doing with some similar peers in California. And then these are some benchmarks we've just kind of set up in the office, which are like minimum benchmarks. If you want to keep the doors open and keep the hospital running, these are some minimums that you at least have to stay at. And you can, the big ones you need to look at, I think, are if you look at, most people are running at about 5% bad debt. You're running at 2%, which is really good. You can see you're consistent with your labor, maybe a little lower in some areas. Supplies, a little bit lower, but again, those are starting to creep up. Current ratio is good. Debt service is good. Days cash on hand, I mean, you're doing excellent with days cash on hand and days in AR, and that all kind of goes together. Your pay period, your days in AR and cash on hand all kind of goes hand in hand with how you're managing your revenue cycle and your finances and whatnot. So overall, a pretty good, a good report card. Like we always say, pat yourself on the back and take about a 5-minute break and then put your foot right back on the gas and, keep doing the things that you're doing that make this happen, growing where you need to grow, no knee-jerk reactions, adding services if it makes sense, controlling expenditures, trying to keep nurses and providers in-house, minimizing travelers and whatnot, and managing your inventory and whatnot, and you seem to be doing a good job on that. So, well done. Any questions on the presentation?
I think this all looks really, really good. And several of us, we went through this during the treasurer's meeting too, so that's partly why we're not asking you as many questions. Gerald, Steve's already answered a bunch of them.
I bet. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Any questions on the draft? You've got the draft. I hope you've had a little bit of time to look through that. Any questions on the actual draft audit? If not, I'm good, and I'll leave it up to you guys to discuss or vote, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, and kudos to Steve and his team too for doing this and going through all this with getting this all prepared as well. And thank you for your help too, Gerald. We really appreciate your being here too.
No, and you're right. It's nice. Steve's been there a few years now. Each year, I mean, every year's been smooth, and he's been very responsive, and his staff is very helpful, and they do a great job. But he's really settling in, and this year some of the analytical work and backup and whatnot was exceptional, and really makes the audit go smooth and is really very helpful. So I appreciate working with Steve.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, board members, do you have any questions, comments? Rich? Treasurer?
No, thank you. No.
And then I will,
You want a motion
please.
for approval of the audit? Is it?
We're accepting the audit.
All right. So moved.
Thank you, Rich. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, Rich?
Aye.
Ken?
Hey,
Ryan?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Thank you, Gerald.
Great.
Gerald,
Yeah, Steve, are you still on?
yeah, I am. I mean, whatever you have to do from your professional standards, we're going to do the single audit real quick. Probably not a lot to do. We don't want to go obviously through the 2021 audit again, but just whatever you need to do.
Oh, okay. Do you have that up on the? Can you bring that up on the screen?
Jeff G.
I'll grab it. I'll grab it as well.
Jeff G.
Tab G.
So the timing's a little the timing's a little confusing, but the bottom line is last year you approved the audit, the regular financial audit for Seneca Healthcare District at June 30, 2021. And then we had to go back and do when we finally got the directions and requirements from the feds, we had to go back and do what's called a single audit. A single audit is a federal and governmental audit that adds on to the financial audit, where we do some additional testing and identifying of federal funds received. And it's required if it's over $750,000 in a fiscal year, which you had. And it requires two additional reports. And are we in the single audit one? Yeah. Okay. So if we skip down, let's just skip down to page 26. So we reported on so this is what's new, or what had to be added to the audit, to the 2021 audit. So you can see that on page 26, that's a detailed schedule of what you received and reported as income last year. Steve had to report this through the HRSA portal, and then we have to do this report and report it through what's called the Federal Audit Clearinghouse for single audits, and that's what this is. So you can see it's all COVID-19 related stimulus.
Hey, Gerald,
money. Yes.
Let me stop you. I'm sorry for a second. Keep TK, keep going down. It's page 26 of his audit. So that's 24. So 2 more pages.
Oh yeah, sorry.
There we go.
Because I'm looking on mine on my screen. So yeah, so this is basically what we had to report on. And this is, so how it works is the money came in, and then Steve had to report it into a portal. And then after that, we had to add these, once it was reported in the portal and figured all that out, then we had to go back and add these reports and do this work for the audit of 2021. And so this was reported in, Steve helped me, my mind, too many reports are bushing together here. We reported this in September, right? September 30th?
That's correct.
Yeah, so the deadline, it kept getting delayed and delayed, but so we reported this to HRSA on September 30th, 2022. So quite a bit after that, I mean, a year and 3 months after the fact, but that's how they wanted to do it. So you can see all the different things that you got money from COVID, for over $4 million, almost 4.2 million from the various COVID funds that were set up with the CARES Act and with stimulus money. And so we had all of that. And then the next couple of pages are the basis, kind of gives you some background on how we include that and so on and so forth. And if you see, yep, and it talks about that was reported in the portal and so on and so forth. So yeah, the amount in the report, the schedule is based on period 1 provider relief fund report submitted to HRSA, which Steve did. So the 2 reports are, the first one is just a general compliance report. And that means that we had, that you were in compliance and spent the money on what you were supposed to spend it on, this COVID money, which you did. And the second report is since those were over, you had individual grants over $750,000. Those, they're considered major programs, and so we look at those as well. Well, you only had the one, really, all the COVID money. So both of these were about this. The testing was pretty much the same, but again, both were clean opinions, and you had no issues and no problems. And like I said, you're not. Don't worry about, like at the bottom of page 33, you don't qualify as a low risk auditee, but that's not bad. One of the things, there's a number of boxes you have to check, and one is, have you had prior single audits to be? So anyone whose first year audit is the first year of a single audit, you're not going to qualify. You're going to be a high risk auditee. And so, but that's just, like I said, that's normal. That was on page 33. If you keep on scrolling down, and there are no findings and no question costs or other issues with the single audits.
Great, thank you.
And
board
again,
members?
Steve did a good job of documenting, you had to go through and document what you received, what you spent it on, and when you spent it, and have it all tied together and reconciled back to the audit. And Steve did a really good job of monitoring and maintaining those records. And so it made the single audit, when it was time to do that, it made it go very, very smoothly.
Yeah.
Any questions on that? Did that take care of that for you, Steve?
Yep.
If I can just say that, during the COVID period, the funding the CARES Act and everything, and the required tracking of all this money coming in and then reporting it out. And I want to throw kudos out to Steve, because it was complicated.
Oh, I would agree.
It was so complicated, whether it was just being made up as it was coming out of Washington. I mean, it was changing weekly, it's changing monthly, and I just want to put kudos out to Steve. If this audit shows that he was on top of all the funding and what the reporting requirements for every bit of that funding. So this is really a good representation of constant work effort, through the whole COVID period and actually up to now. So I just want the board to know that this has been a big undertaking. And Jared, thank you for being able to, if you will, distill it down for us a little bit.
No problem.
Yeah, there had to have been just so much tracking involved in all of this. I mean,
Well, and there was penalties. I mean, if you weren't tracking this, they were asking for their money back. So
yeah.
the fact that it was tracked well and really get bid is a good thing.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's
Yeah, and
great.
that was one of the unique situations. I mean, you kind of alluded to it. They've never had a grant program, a program like this that puts so much money into the healthcare pipeline with really minimal instruction
Yeah.
or what the requirements were, and then the requirements came afterwards. And so it was a little bit of a hairy ride, but again, Steve and your staff, they navigated it well, and you ended up making $4 million on the deal. So, or being able to retain $4 million in this, and that's another $1.5 million of PPP on top of that. So, over almost $6 million in COVID relief, which will be needed over the next couple of years or next year or so as inflation continues to impact your hospital and other items.
Yeah, just quickly, the work certainly on the initial COVID money involved Stephen Stoops and materials management, huge tracking on all the PPE purchases, Dave Monday in lab. He just spent the money, so but his tracking of expenses, and then it ultimately came down to Janelle Hardig and accounts payable to keep the things in the COVID bucket. So when we went to claim expenses, then the information was there. So that was a real Seneca effort there.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to track it all along and then having to try to go back and recreate it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Kudos to the whole team for sure.
Yeah. In case you were sleeping, the last 2 years in healthcare have been
Crazy. Even crazier than usual.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or anything else?
I don't think so. We do need to accept this one as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay, then any other questions, board members?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ryan. All in favor, Rich?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Thank you, Gerald.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve, I'll be in touch with the rep letter and whatnot, and we'll get this wrapped up and issued for you.
Okay. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, should we circle back to our board candidate interview? I think Shelley looks like she might be able to. Can you hear us now, Shelley?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can. Yay. Were
Oh
you
my
able to hear-
goodness, I'm glad.
Were you able to hear us earlier? Sorry, were you able to hear us earlier when we were talking about the candidate position?
I was not.
Oh, okay, so we have until the end of our next meeting in January to make a decision. And so we've decided that we're not going to make a decision today, but We're gonna wait just because it's been the holidays and we want to make sure that the community has the opportunity if we have any other candidates that decide to throw their hat in the ring. So nothing against, there's nothing to say anything about it. Your qualifications are really, really good. I just wanted to make sure you knew that we weren't gonna make a decision today.
That's absolutely fine.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and move into it. If the board doesn't mind, I have some questions that I had kind of come up with, and then we can go from there with whatever other questions you guys have. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Shelley, can you please tell us a little about yourself and why you're interested in serving on the Seneca Healthcare District Board?
She's muted.
Oh, she's muted. Oh, hold on, Shelley, you're muted. 1 second. It doesn't look like she's.
There we go. She's on.
Oh, now we
Yep.
can. Yes, please go
Yep.
ahead.
Okay. My phone continually came from *6 because I was muted.
Oh.
Okay, so as long as you can hear me, let me move forward. So I am a full-time resident of Chester as of June of 21, when I retired from my nursing position with North Bay Healthcare. I've been an RN for about 35 years. My husband and I purchased our home in Lake West in 2014. And we used that primarily as a weekend and our vacation home. Having experienced multiple seasons in Chester during that time period, we decided to take the plunge and make our home in Lake Elsinore West our full-time residence, which we have since June of 21. So we feel that it has been just it offers us a wonderful quality of life. We have 3 grown sons. Our youngest son lives in Chico, a Chico police officer with his wife and new baby. We have our middle son who lives in Anderson, gainfully employed, 2 grandchildren. Our oldest lives here in Vacaville. He's married as well. My husband's a retired Vacaville police officer. So that's kind of a rundown of my personal life and a little bit of my professional. I shared with you that I worked for North Bay Healthcare for 20 years. I started there in utilization management and was quickly promoted to supervisor, managers, and director of 4 departments. I participated in the California Hospital Association Case Management Committee. I presented at American Case Management conferences. Nursing just afforded me an amazing. And because of that, I felt that with this new board position that became open at Seneca, I thought perhaps I might be of value to the effort. So hence I submitted my interest letter, and here we are.
Great, thank you, Shelley. Let's see, so next I have, do you have any experience serving on boards?
Yes, I was on, well, I participated in several of the hospital board meetings presenting the different reports. I was on the ACMA board, American Case Management Association board, and I was involved in several of the City of Fairfield and City of Vacaville, some board meetings where mental health issues were discussed, and I presented on some topics. That primarily is, I think, is the extent of my experience.
Oh, great, thank you. Next, are you familiar with the Brown Act?
Actually, I am, and I did a little research on that, and I do understand that public comments no longer have to be submitted in advance of meetings.
Great, thank
Public
you.
meetings. You're welcome.
So, Shelley, what do you think are the most important qualities of a good board member?
That's an excellent question. I think the ability to listen is number one, and patience, to be patient and listen through to what is being presented. Ask questions and be respectful.
Great, thank you. And kind of following on that, what do you consider to be the most important function of the board?
To guide, to be there as a resource and a guide. Obviously, it's an approval body for the hospital to move forward. But I think I see hospital boards as primarily as being a guide
Great,
for
thank
moving
you.
forward.
All right, so I think you already answered this question. It was if you're a registered voter permanently residing in the district, but it sounds like you are, correct? Yes, okay, thank
Yeah.
you. We'll just skip that one then. Are you familiar with how critical access hospital finance works?
Not as much as I have been, actually to a very small extent. The majority of actually all of my care has been in large hospitals. I certainly, when I was on the California Hospital Association Case Management Board, we had other directors from critical access hospitals who certainly shared their challenges with trying to discharge patients, identify appropriate resources for them, and they definitely had very distinct challenges that we roundtabled about how to resolve at those meetings.
Great, thank you. And my last question I have is, what do you consider your greatest strengths and weaknesses?
I think my greatest strength is the ability to listen and to empathize. And my greatest weakness is probably not asking questions soon enough, but I will circle back and make sure that I touch base with the person or that entity after I have thought through, what is being discussed.
Okay, great, thank you. Other board members, do you have additional questions you want to ask?
I have just a question, and it's not really a question so much as asking you to elaborate a little bit on your work with mentally ill populations.
I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry. On the what population?
You referenced doing some work with mental health issues. So I'm wondering if you could just elaborate on that.
Yes. So while I was working as the director of inpatient, outpatient case management and social services at North Bay Healthcare, which is a trauma 2-level hospital, we certainly had our discharge, our difficult patients. And by difficult, I mean patients that had very few to none financial resources, family resources, friends, what have you. And many of those patients had mental health issues as well. We worked collaboratively with the county, Solano County, and some of the Yolo County mental health administrators to try and roundtable and come up with solutions. We developed a program where case managers, which were some of them were social workers, some of them were RN case managers, that developed a mobile unit and actually went out and once those patients were discharged, whether it was to a shelter or to a hotel, and visited the patients and helped them to fill out appropriate paperwork for ongoing financial resources, to access medications, make appointments, take them if they needed help with transportation, either take them or set up transportation for those patients to get to mental health appointments. I consider that to be a huge success.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. It sounds like you're well aware of some of the challenges related to both primary care and ER departments and mental health agencies. I'm really kind of interested myself in coordinated care between behavioral health and primary care. Thank Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rich, I think I heard you had a question.
Yeah, Shelley, what was your last position at North Bay?
Yes, I was a manager of utilization management and outpatient complex case management. About 2 years before I retired, I, of my own accord, I decided to wind down, and I stepped back from my director position due to, well, hopefully trying to improve my quality of life. It was rather crazy there for a while, and this position became open. And UM and outpatient case management was a department that I started at North Bay in 2001, and the manager was leaving. So I saw that opportunity and I thought, you know, this is probably a good time. So I stepped back, and it's a good transition for me to eventually retire. But North Bay afforded me an amazing nursing career. I learned so much. I'm nothing but, you know, grateful to them for the many things they gave me.
Thank you, Shelley.
You're welcome.
Board members, any other questions for Shelley?
No more.
Shelley, do you have any questions for us?
I do actually. And Sherry, this is probably one that you're probably going to need to answer. Can you share with me a little bit about what the commitment would entail as a board member?
Well, I think moving into this next phase, it's going to be a lot more than what it has been. You know, we meet, our regular meetings are once a month, the last Thursday of the month. How long they last varies widely depending upon how much content we have to go through. But we do have special meetings that are called periodically too, as things come up that maybe need to be addressed before the next regular meeting comes up. So it's really hard to say right now, yes, and there's committee work too. We do have several different committees for our organization, and that varies widely too as far as how much work is involved. But as we're moving forward into this next phase with building a new hospital and trying to determine what we're going to do with the old one, there's going to be a lot more work involved, a lot more time commitment, certainly.
Thank you.
Question?
Yes, that does. Thank you very much.
Great.
And how many board members are there currently?
Right now we have 4. We have with the open seat, there are 5 in total. So if you were appointed to the board, then you would serve out 2 years, and then at the next general election, the position would come up for election.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
Is that true, or isn't it a 4-year? Oh,
No, that's not what
okay. You're
the
correct.
election. Yeah, the elections office said that,
Yep.
that because of the timing.
You're correct.
Do you have any other questions?
No, I think this has been exciting. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate your expressing your interest in coming here today and letting us grill you. So thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
I think we will continue on then with our
Thank you.
agenda. Thank you, Shelley. Okay, so next up, Steve, are you still there?
Yeah, I was here for 5 minutes and I went back to work.
Sorry, Steve. We're back to your financial report.
All right. Okay, so tab E.
TK, if you could share tab E, please. Thank you.
See, there it is. Okay. So we're talking about the month of October 2022, and sound like a broken record, but we were still 1 month behind. We're just going to have to make a really big push to get current by the end of June for 2 reasons. 1, we need to be current, and 2, Yeah, to say June, I think January, end of January.
Okay, did you mean January, Steve?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, so by the end of January, because it'll be our first month of reporting under the multi-view system. So there will be a lot of work that will, because we'll be bringing forward balances from Evident through November into multi-view for December for the November year to date, and then the December actual. So regardless, another busy month in finance in January, not June. So October was kind of an interesting month in that if you look at the operations from a high level, everything kind of fell in line. We had a net loss of 311,000 versus a budgeted of 325,000, which created a small positive variance. We had positive variance in both net patient and other operating revenue, which was somewhat offset by negative variance in total operating expenses. The net patient revenue was a combination of a negative variance in inpatient utilization and a positive variance of outpatient utilization and revenue that netted out to a small positive variance. We talked about this in the treasurer's meeting that that one of the unique things about the month of October was our inpatient utilization was down, but our what we call observation patients, which is a patient that presents at the emergency room, emergency department, and does not meet what we call the criteria for inpatient admission, but is still quite ill, and we want to keep them for observation for continued care to make sure that their condition doesn't worsen, and which would put them into an inpatient status. And then if they don't, then they're able to be safely discharged. So some of those observation patients do get worse and then they become inpatients. It just was a interesting month where so many of them stayed in that outpatient observation status. So regardless, and Jerry, I did confirm with our coding, and the 2023, we're set for the new way that they code observation professional fees. So yeah, we're good to go there. And but then moving down, like I said, there was a small variance, negative variance in total operating expenses, and some of it was made up of salaries and wages, which was offset by contract labor. And we had a positive variance in contract labor. We had a pretty good discussion about this in the treasurer's meeting, that our FTEs, our employed FTEs, or the expenses that go into salaries and wages, went up. We went from 100 FTEs to 103, but this was again offset by a decrease in our contract labor, mainly in the area of long-term care, where we're seeing the benefits of our CNA program that finished back in September, and now we have these graduates working in our long-term care unit, which is a great thing. The professional fees were a little high, and this is really an impact of, like Gerald Tucker talked about, that we got hit by the impact of the use of locum providers, locum physicians, and it caused us to exceed our budget a little bit. And then, as I mentioned in my narrative, other expenses, the recruitment of for a couple positions, one for our new accounting supervisor, Kristen Courtwright, and almost would have paid for that out of my own pocket. So, but,
you can submit a check later, Steve.
Like, hey, it's volunteer.
Almost, I said. So, and then the CL, clinical lab scientists that we continue to look for, and as along with everybody else. So the one thing that's interesting, it's kind of funny if you are involved in the treasurer's meetings and all, is that we did have a positive variance in our interest income, and this just shows the dynamics of the world right now. Is that when we prepared the budget, we were still in that I don't know what they call it, where the Fed was at a zero interest, the free money, and so we were in turn not earning any money on our investments because we were invested through LAIF, which does conservative investments, fixed income investments, which are returning very poorly. But now our rate has gone up and we're now earning just around 2.25% on our LAIF funds. But we're trying to migrate some of those dollars into other markets, such as treasury markets, where we can invest directly and capture some of those rates that now are over 4%. So we continue to work with the financial advisors and the attorneys to make sure we can structure something that's sound and allowable. But it's kind of funny that we exceeded budget by so much while there's still greater opportunity out there that we continue to chase. So that's really it for October. Any questions or comments or concerns?
Board members? Rich?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Steve. With that, I will take a motion to accept the financial statements for October.
Or
Thank-
the other.
I think Ken moved and Rich seconded,
There we
is
go.
what I heard. All in favor, Ryan?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Thank you. Okay, I think you're still up, Steve. The contract for USDA feasibility study.
So tab 8. And I think Jerry was around back in 2008. Oh, Rich too.
And Ken.
Okay, great. So what we're doing here is we are bringing back the accounting firm Whitfley to do what's called the feasibility study and examine forecast, which will project our ability to incur debt and to repay that debt. And this will become the basis of our furtherance with the USDA of pursuing a financing through them. And this is a required element of a USDA loan application. And I don't know that there's much more to say about it, that we intend to pursue a loan through the USDA, and this is a part of it that we need to complete. So I'll put it out to the board. If there's any questions or comments or concerns.
Thought it was pretty straightforward. Board members, do you guys have any questions?
So draft is due, I noticed, in April, is that correct?
We're trying to get to the application. This has got to be done, so it's on a short timeline.
Yeah, the sooner we can get this
No dilly-dallying
in,
on this.
the
It's part of our
less,
application.
yeah, the less they can raise the interest rates between now and when we submit our
Right.
application.
Right.
So that's why Steve's trying to get them to push through as quickly as possible.
And Steve, we're looking at a 4-month, the Whitley they can commit to about a 4.5 or 4-month process, roughly.
Yeah, that's what they said when we met with them, that they said that they can distill this down to 3 to 4 months. Some of it due to some better access to data within the state of California, and also their existing relationship and the work they've done to date. So
Yeah, we're really trying to chase this down so that we don't have a big fat bump again. we're really trying to chase the interest rate.
Yeah.
So if this gets approved, then we're gonna unleash them to get this
Because they raise
study
it
done.
quarterly, as I recall from our discussion with them, yeah. Yeah, so we've already, Bill already raised it a little bit, hopefully not too much by the time we get this submitted, but
Yeah.
if we can get this in.
It's
sooner
gonna go
rather
up. I'm just trying to, we just expect that it's gonna continue to go up, so we don't wanna get stuck.
Are there refinancing options?
Of course, yeah. Our advisors have looked at multiple different ways of restructuring and restructuring, and, not only just USDA, but we have the option at no penalty to restructure it in the commercial market as well. So they're quite astute at looking how we structure it. This, though, is USDA is
really low.
sweetest deal out there.
Yeah.
It really is, and this is a requirement to that. So
Yeah. Steve, did they say they thought it was gonna be moving to 3.2, or it currently is 3.2?
it's gonna go forward.
No, they thought it was gonna be 3 3.75, that USDA folks did.
Where it will move
Either
to.
it was March or June that they said that. The other thing that's interesting about the USDA is what'll happen is when we get the approval and the conditions letter, is we'll lock a rate at that point, and the municipal advisors have these ideas where we're going to do these what do they call them, bands. So it will be a period of, I don't know, 3 to 5 years where we'll have this other debt structure in place, and then we'll put in the permanent USDA financing. And when we actually go to access the funds, if the interest rates have gone down, we get the lower rate. So it's it's a great program for rural development is what it really is all about. So and the other thing that's really critical is that they do their funding within the federal fiscal year within September 30. So we want to get that conditions letter, obviously, as soon as possible for the interest rates, but also we really need to lock in that commitment within this federal funding year, so September 30. Because if we miss that, then we probably won't be looking at funding until, somewhat after their new fiscal year begins. And if, like this year, the federal budget just got passed. So, everybody was working on that continuing resolution. So who knows what goes on. We need to just get that the conditions letter authorizing our loan in hand by September. That's our real goal.
Thank you, Steve. All right, any other questions? And I will accept a motion to approve this contract, which it does include $78,000 as their fee plus et cetera, billables that they have in here.
So moved.
Thank you, Rich. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Ken. All in favor, Rich?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Thank you. And thank you, Steve, for working with them to put this together as well.
Look forward to working with them again.
Okay, moving on, we have item 17, AB 361 Brown Act Amendment. Any changes on this?
No changes requested.
Okay, then we will move on. 18, tab I is our official final results from our election. So, looks like we had a total of 1,850 voters, registered voters who voted, and we got just under 80% approval, yes, so
Yeah.
fantastic.
So we had 66% of the total voter roll vote in this election,
Which is really pretty.
which is very high.
Yeah.
So this was a hot topic with almost an 80% approval rating with those that voted. So pretty impressive turnout. This was a hot button.
So, do you have a comment, Ken?
Nope,
Okay.
I'm just in agreement.
Okay.
Very
All right.
exciting.
Let's move on to 19, continued association affiliations. Mrs. Yu?
So this is just a dialogue with the board. We are affiliated through membership with many, many different organizations, everything from the rural health clinic to ACHD to, there's just a lot. We really engage in the activities of a lot of membership. I'm just looking at, I'm going to bring it to the board. I meant to have a complete rundown of every one of our associations and the cost, the yearly cost. And unfortunately, I didn't get that done. I apologize to the board for that. But I think the board needs to, and we'll do it in January, but I want the board to take a real good look at all the associations we belong to and the fee structure for all of those, and help me to, if you will, wrangle down some of those that are really great advocates for us, those that provides the board certain types of education or things that are used. So I'm going to be bringing to the board a list, and it's fairly extensive list. And what I'd like to do is consider about trimming down a little bit. And the reason is we've been asked, there hasn't been a lot of lobbying capability with all of our associations, whether they're too small to really lobby in Sacramento, or they don't really pay attention to us. They're so big that their clients, the larger clients, the Sutters of the world, the Kaisers of the world, really take precedent. We have completely different needs than large organizations. There has been a grassroots effort to put together a critical access rural healthcare lobbying group. We have been asked by the person that's really the stimulus behind this to be a founding member. It's anywhere from 10 to 12,000 a year as a founding member, but I guarantee you we spend that on at least one or two of our associations. So I'm going to bring it to the board later, but this is for discussion and awareness that I am more apt to lean into a lobby group that is more associated with the needs of critical access and rural healthcare, and trade off, if you will, a couple of our association memberships for joining this lobbying firm as a lobbying group as a founding member. They're expected to get somewhere around 30 to 40 critical access hospitals, rural hospitals to join, but we've been asked to be a founding member.
So that's their main focus, is critical access.
It's all about rural healthcare. We're impacted so greatly by legislation that doesn't particularly affect a large organization, but it kills us, so we don't think that representation is very, it's just not focused enough on what our needs are. And they're very specific. We all know as board members that running rural healthcare and critical access has its own set of issues, and they're just not being addressed effectively. So I'm going to just awareness to the board that it's coming. We will do the analysis. I'll have more information on the lobbying piece of this, but I've been asked to introduce it at least for conversation to the board in this meeting, and then not a resolution, but a decision to move forward with trade-offs in the next board meeting.
Are PDH and EPHC, are they involved in this at all?
They are.
Okay.
In fact, we have really, really good representation in the founding 10 in the northern block here. So the MODOCs and the mayors and they're all of our sister hospitals. I call them sister hospitals. These really are affiliated. They're not competitors. They are hospitals that serve the same sort of environment and demographic that we serve, are all very interested in kind of having a different pathway forward.
And how are they talking about staffing this?
They have already contracted with a lobbying firm that sits outside the Capitol right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's already going. We've been asked to get on the train as a founding member.
So that's all this is here, and there's no, I'm confused by what.
These are the bylaws of the group. This is just, these are the bylaws that have been put together by the founding group that would basically lead the efforts in this lobbying. These are the bylaws that have been set forth currently. They're still evolving. We don't have to act on any of these. I just wanted these for reference.
Okay.
But I do want the board to start considering this for the next board meeting, as I may be coming to you with a trade-off request.
And what does it mean to be a founding member versus a member, or is that?
We sit on their board.
Okay.
We have governance over the direction, governance over the issues, and we basically will sit there and be able to identify what is really important to us as membership. So we would have a board position.
would it be possible to know what our sister hospitals, what associations they have?
Yeah, I think actually we're on a lot of these calls. We're associated with a lot of the same, and I don't think they're going through the exercise right now of looking at trade-offs. I think they're just kind of staying with what they have and then joining this in addition. And I think that there's probably a trade-off that can be had here.
Sure.
For what's viable. And so there's no net cost to us. It's just a trade-off.
Yep.
And with potentially better representation.
Well, I appreciate going through the association, the whole list, and
yeah, we're going to go through
the exercise.
There's a few. I think we spend a little bit of money on these. But I really want to know what's important to the board.
So how many hospitals are now affiliated with this?
There's somewhere around 24 right now that are interested. 10 are founding, 24, but there's a lot of grassroots activity going on where they're jumping on this to say we just need a better voice, a more clairvoyant, less noise around our issues. So something that's coming. I want the board to be aware.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other questions, board members? Rich, any questions?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Sean.
You bet.
Okay, next up we have HRG. Steve, are you still here?
Yep. So,
Multitasking.
all right.
We know you're
So
busy.
tab K.
I think we're there.
Yeah, we're
Okay,
there.
great. So real quick, just the thing to note is that AR days went down from 57.7 to 55.1. 55.1 is just right at the top end of our best practices. Hey, TK, can you just scroll down a little bit so we can see that bottom graph a little better? Or whomever's running the thing. Okay, perfect. So if you look at this bottom graph, the blue is the current month and the brownish orange is our target. You can see that everything is at or below the target except for Medi-Cal. So we're really fighting Medi-Cal right now. Some of it's in long-term care, some of it's in large ER accounts, but it's always a battle, and we just the way that we're successful is just staying on top of it. We being us and HRG. So anyway, that's, if you look at that and you bring down that Medi-Cal, which is very doable because as noted in the narrative, it's in very few accounts. It's just some very, very large dollars. Then we're really, all of our payers are in line and our totals in line. So that's kind of the report. Any questions or comments?
I think this speaks volumes about how well you and your team are doing on this. So thank you for all of your hard work.
Yeah. So it never stops. So.
Was that one of your expectations, Steve?
Yeah, no, you go to sleep on them, they'll wake you up. So, yeah, you just have to be on it just religiously or vigilantly. So, maybe someday we won't have to do that. But anyway, that's that.
Thank you. Okay, it looks like we are moving on. Donna, are you on for critical access hospital report?
I am.
Hey, Donna.
There.
Yes.
All righty. So diving in, looking at the report that was provided, we are for the CEQA-NEPA process, we are looking at the consultant finishing up the initial study here shortly, as well as, and in doing so, implementing the information that's being received from the final technical reports. We had already incorporated into our schedule a review by Plymouth County Planning and LAFCO to review that initial study before it goes out to public distribution. We have a meeting with the county as well as with LAFCO on January 4th, and we'll be going over that schedule with them and making sure that they're informed of our processes and timelines, and getting them teed up, if you will, to receive that initial study for their review. Moving on to heliport, the draft MOU that this board reviewed has been provided to Collins Pine for their review. I have not gotten any feedback from them yet, but we'll be pursuing that further, and we'll report back to the board when we get that. The team did identify some potential heliport consultants, and we have had some discussions with them, Sean, Judy, and myself, with one in particular who indicated that because we are not looking at having flights with instrument flight rules or IFR ratings, we are not anticipating an approval being needed from the FAA, only an advisement. And so that simplifies quite a bit. We're getting some confirmation on that, as well as looking at how the Division of Aeronautics plays into this too, and what kind of approvals, if there are any, that we need from them. So all that is being vetted, and once we get that a confirmation on those requirements, we'll report back to the board on that. Whether what we're looking at right now is that it's likely if the BOA along with the FAA do not have official approvals that are needed, then we're likely not going to need that heliport consultant, and we'll just we'll make sure that the heliport is built to be able to get that approval if we want to go to an IFR capability at a later date, but not have to do it at this time.
So, and Donna, the heliport, that will be included as part of the general plan amendment that the county approves, correct? So it's included within a use that is within the zoning that we're requesting. Okay. So yeah, so that will be a part of the approval, because it will be part of the overall zoning approval. Perfect, thank you. Harvest plan, just updating, once we get those technical studies that were referenced above in the CEQA-NEPA process, those will be provided to the Sierra Timber Services consultant, and we'll get that application into CAL FIRE for that timber conversion permit. And we're still working with them to get the timelines for that, as well as for the actual harvest RFP, harvest or timber removal RFP and associated work in the field. No update on the Wildwood easement. We're still working to get signature on that from PCCDC, but working. We've gotten contact, and we'll continue to get that put to rest. And then again, we'll keep this on here even after that easement is signed, because there's still this pending secondary emergency access that we'll be bringing to them at a later date once we get this feedback from the design build entity on the design associated with that. LAFCO annexation, we're looking at pushing that submittal to them, that application submittal to them, to again align with their approval following the Board of Supervisors approval of the general plan amendment rezone. And so we're making sure that we're timing it such that they're not going to need to do any kind of extensions on the application. That's our goal, is to be able to submit it such that it's aligned at the end to have the time that they need to get the Board of Supervisors approval, and then their approval without extra time, such that they'll again need an extension for that application. Financing, with the input from USDA that we had at a 12/6 meeting, our financial advisor has developed several or a couple different scenarios for funding throughout the project.
Good solutions. I think everyone's happy with how those are coming together. We will, I'll touch on this with the design. We're going to be bringing more back to the board at the January 26th meeting for the design. And at the same time, I'm asking, we're working with Fieldman Roll-Up and BBK and trying to see what we also need to bring to the board for approvals for the funding component. So more to come at the January 26th meeting for that. Moving on to USDA, again, the 12-6 site visit was extremely helpful. We're looking to get that pre-application response that we submitted to them for the USDA financing any day, but we have not received that yet, and so still trying to pursue that formal approval to or formal invitation to provide an application, of which part of that is what Stephen referenced earlier with the Whipley information, the exam and forecast that they'll be doing, along with a preliminary architectural report that our criteria document architect will be producing, some information with communication to the Native American tribe, has to be part of that. So just making sure that, and then of course the NEPA component, the environmental component that they'll be requiring. So all that will be part of what we expect to see in the invitation to apply that we'll be getting in response to that pre-application. Other funding, no update from the December 1st board meeting. Schedule and budget we're validating with the design build entity having started their 45-day validation phase on January 28th. Again, completing on, beginning on November 28th, completing on January 12th. And they are diligently reviewing all the data that's been provided to them, both from the Whipley market study that was done back in 2019, or finished in 2019, as well as hospital data that's been provided to them. They're just kind of crunching numbers, and ultimately will be coming back to us with a validation of the design that was put out through the criteria documents, and a meeting is set up on January 12th for them to come to site and do a presentation for what they're proposing to move forward with as any presented as any proposed changes to criteria documents that were bid.
So Donna, do you anticipate that waiting until the regular meeting will be sufficient with the timeline and what we have to provide them?
I do. That gives us about 2 weeks to do that. And so it will be a little bit of back and forth with I expect it to be a little bit of back and forth with the design build entity, but I am looking to bring to the January 26th meeting the results of the validation phase.
Okay, great, thank you.
And then medical equipment planning, just an update too. There's a name change with the company that we contracted with. They are changing their name to Entroba effective January 1st of 2023. And so they have been, along with that name change, being informed, or us being informed of that name change, we also have informed them of how we're moving forward with the design build entity, and they're standing by ready to give the input that's needed to the validation phase that was referenced previously.
Did they combine with another company?
They did.
Okay, all right.
Same people that we're going to be working with, though. I don't anticipate any staff changes. I haven't been informed of any staff changes, nor do I anticipate that.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you, Donna. Any questions for Donna?
No. Thank you.
A lot going on. Appreciate it.
Nice.
And thanks for being here. Of course. Okay, let's move on. Sean, you're up.
Yeah, there's no written report. I really have nothing to report on that hasn't been reported on by everybody else on the team. There's been nothing significant changes. We've just, we have just been walking the path forward, piece by piece, on everything that we've got going on, whether it's the Cerner implementation, the telephone system, the build. So I've nothing to report to the board that is out of what we've already been discussing. So short report, I'm glad to take questions. Been no major changes.
Questions? Rich, do you have any questions?
No, no.
Things are tracking. That's all I have to say to the board. We are tracking. Boy, are we tracking.
I think you mentioned next month's meeting, you'll be remote. Is that
Yeah.
it?
Oh, so yeah. So I'm going to be remote next month. I will be in via Zoom, but I just let the board know that I will be elsewhere. I won't be local, so I'll be remoting in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Judy.
I have a pretty short report this month as well. My usual update on COVID, it's still here. It didn't go. But the incidence level in our county remains categorized as low, but we're still seeing some positive cases. We're not seeing hospitalizations currently. So that's good. We are seeing still a lot of influenza A, and that has been causing some serious illness in our region. We did get an advisory on this invasive group A streptococcal infection in pediatric populations. It's mostly being found in Colorado. Currently, we have not heard of any reported cases in our region yet, so keep an eye on that. There's my other usual stuff. All of our regulatory surveys that we experienced during the month of October, because we believe that they want to get here before it starts snowing, and so
That's why they all came in at one time.
And we have submitted all of our plans of correction, which were actually quite minimal. Really nothing very easily corrected issues, and those have all been accepted and submitted, which means that these reports are considered complete.
That's a huge kudos to you and your staff for that too.
It takes a village for sure. So, but we are very pleased that the things that they found were just really nothing at all. But they have to find something, or they won't be. Our anesthesia, our new anesthesia machine has arrived. It took about 3 months to get here. But it arrived last week. It has been okayed by our biomed team. But it arrived with only one vaporizer, and we realized that it actually should have arrived with 2 separate types of vaporizer units for our CRNA. And so we're working on securing the appropriate unit, and then we can put it into service at that time. Next month, I'm hoping to be able to present to you a list of our anticipated capital expenses moving into the next fiscal year. We did get approval today to move forward with the purchase of the last 2 co-op beds for our acute care unit, and so we're going to go ahead and do that, and that will actually complete our fleet of new beds for our acute care 8 beds. So that's exciting, because they're very nice beds. We've had personal attestations that they're pretty comfy to come to be a patient here, so that's great. I want to give I know Brian Churchill is going to give a report on Cerner, but I need for you guys to realize how hard our staff is working on these building blocks of Cerner. And there's some departments, some clinical or clinical departments that are really having to do a lot of heavy lifting in order to get this right from the very beginning build. And that would be laboratory and pharmacy are excruciating in the amount of detail and the number of items that need to be put into these spreadsheets and done absolutely correctly. And we had our first meeting with our Pyxis reps yesterday, so there will be additional spreadsheets that need to be created. So I just want you to know that, as Sean said, we're tracking fine, but it's painful at times, and it's a lot of hours on top of everyone's regular workloads with all of our working managers, but they're doing a fantastic job.
We appreciate everyone's efforts very much.
Really doing great.
Yeah, it's going to pay out on the other side.
It is. So So anyway, that's all I have unless you have any questions.
I just have one question.
Sure.
What is TNCC course?
That is the trauma nursing core
Okay,
curriculum.
okay.
So
I was wondering if it was
it's
trauma.
a 2.5-day course with hands-on skills and a pretty hefty exam at the end. But it's everything from shock conditions to any type of trauma related injuries that you can imagine. It's quite excellent.
It sounds like it. I'm excited our staff's getting some additional
Yeah,
training.
they're having fun going down there and they're coming back feeling smarter. We love that.
This is all the continuance of Project Dust Off that Judy's responsible for. So making our emergency room the absolute best it can be for conditions, right? You know,
We definitely get some trauma up here.
We do.
Yeah.
We are getting better and better prepared for it all the time.
Great, thank you, Judy. Anybody have any questions for Judy? Rich, do you have anything?
Oh, thank you, Judy.
Thank you. Okay, so now we can move into the Cerner update. Is Brian with us? Oh, there he is. We see you, Brian. We can't hear you yet.
I'm off mute now.
There we go.
So as you know, Sean and Judy have said, the staff is doing a lot of work to get this up and running. Steve's team as well on the Charge Master. You know, you go through the number of items that can be billed in a hospital, that can be ordered in a hospital. It is overwhelming for a facility this size, and they're doing an amazing job keeping the place running and doing, you know, like you heard on every presentation today. This place is doing an amazing job on top of this huge workload. So our big event coming up next week, the Train the Trainer. Unfortunately, the storm that's approaching has forced us to do a full virtual session on this next week. It won't impact our go live or training, and the Cerner staff will be on site to do our integrated testing later next month. But we're moving on, moving forward on that. The DCWs, like Judy was saying, is a lot of work on some of these staff, and you know, Dave Monday, a ton of work in the lab. He has had a huge load of DCWs to fill out, and you know, basically doing it all by himself, keeping the lab going. As we reported last month, there was a potential red flag with long-term care, but that has been resolved. So long-term care is slated to go live with the rest of the facility in the end of April. So, we are moving forward. The staff will start getting access to the Cerner system next week when they do the Train the Trainer. And Steve's staff will have a lot of work to do the following week to make sure that the charges are dropping, that the bills are processing, the claims are going out properly. You know, well, actually, no, sorry. That's at the end of the month when we do integrated testing. But you know, there is so much work going on, so many pieces going on. TK and her team also are doing a ton of work. Like Steve, Sean had said, the phone system, they're replacing all the PC, technical infrastructure of the facility while doing this. It's an amazing job that everybody's doing here. We're the latest update from Cerner gives us, you know, a green dot. We're on track, ready to go. You know, we just hope that everybody stays healthy and the storm doesn't impact the facility too much, and we can continue on.
Great,
yeah,
thank you,
it
Brian.
broke up a little bit. What you may not have heard is we made the call today to go to completely virtual on the Train the Trainer because of our snow event coming and the delays in airlines. It's a nightmare to travel right now. So we conferred with everybody and said that we can be effective with the Train the Trainer virtually. So it kind of broke up a little bit. I don't know if you actually heard that, but that was a real-time call. That was just a call today. So they were able to cancel without cancellation fees, or we're hoping. So.
Well, and positive is the long-term module piece.
Yeah, squeaky wheel gets the grease, right?
Yep.
Well,
yep.
between Brian and myself,
Great
it was
job,
just
you
a
guys.
foghorn in their ear constantly about that wasn't acceptable. So they were able to find the resource.
Good, good.
Well, I think you said, don't even speak unless you're telling me you have the module.
Yeah, something like that. You know, I was pretty straightforward with them, you know, because I can be subtle like that. Yeah. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
All right. I'll see you all next week.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us. Okay, next up we have our departmental reports. So we have our compliance report, and look through this. I didn't see anything that stuck out to me. Anyone else? I'm going to be meeting with Charlene to talk about, you know, our board compliance, our ethics, and all of that stuff, making sure that we're all where we need to be with that. Our ethics certification is, but we may have some additional compliance type training that we have to do. So I'm going to be meeting with her to see what needs to be done there. IT report. I very much enjoyed going through the Apex report here.
Well, you know, and TK can speak to it, but I can tell you that, you know, I want to give kudos to the board for approving our infrastructure changeover. There has been a lot of work accomplished, and we are now at what is considered to be the industry standards. We got a couple little things that we're doing, but our entire network infrastructure has completely changed. It's highly secured. So thank you for investing in the organization, because it was kind of messy. And we're coming to fruition. We're actually deploying our new devices now for the pre-Cerner go live. And they are lickety split fast. So
good.
Thank you.
So my question then becomes, how do we keep on top of all of this going forward?
Well, I'll answer for TK, because I know she's itching to answer this. We have a VCIO, a virtual CIO, that's provided under our contract with Apex, and they work with TK and the team to provide us a long-range forecast for upgrades and necessary, so that we're, rather than doing just in time, we're actually able to plan out the year for whether it's patches, whether it's upgrades, whether it's licensure, whether it's adding. It's very important that we understand from an IT perspective what's coming in the next 9 months, 12 months. So the VCIO and TK will be putting forth sort of a projected outlay of things that we're going to need, including refresh. Rather than dumping one big refresh, we'll go through a kind of a sequenced refresh, so it doesn't hit us all at once. So we'll be getting way ahead of any IT upgrades that are necessary. But right now, I think that we are going to, with very little change, and boy, I'm going to chew on this one for a while, I just know it, but our IT will suffice with some little patches and stuff along the way until because the IT focus is really going to be on the new site. That's really going to be the focal point. So but we're there, so we're very close.
And we're good with our inventory of all of our equipment and keeping track of our life on it and all of that.
TK can answer that, but yeah, we're putting in controls. Yeah, so asset numbers, controls. There's
primary image.
We got a new Seneca image, so they've imaged them the same.
Good.
That was one of the requirements for the distribution. So TK, do you want to add anything?
Well, the other thing that I just wanted to add that's kind of key is, you know, we're moving towards standards, which is a big help when we're talking about continuity of business and being able to have something where we can backfill something as needed. We're very much looking at the devices being compatible, which we've run into a hard one in the past. So it's really nice to get caught up here and then actually get ahead and be able to forecast with these budgets ahead of time. Before, we did have an inventory method, but we didn't have the software that really gave us the details that we needed to stay ahead of it. And now that that software is in place, I think it will be a big help so that we can forecast this in cycles where it's not going to be as big a hit financially. And I think that'll help help in the finance department as we position ourselves with cash flows and such.
Thank you, TK. And it looks like we're on track for our phone installation too. Is there any challenges we're encountering with that?
Yeah.
Any big challenges?
No, nothing that's a showstopper. I've learned more about phone systems than I ever want to learn ever. I just leave this one in the review mirror. Our new phone system, we are on track. Daphne and TK, I want to put a lot of call out to the people that have been doing a lot of this work. There's a lot of decision making. The database, we're working on our phone tree, on our public services announcements, how they come in, groupings. So this is going forward. I want to give some kudos to Maverick. They've really been engaged in helping us understand the new and improved phone systems, how to put them together. They've been a really, really good consulting partner as well as a vendor. So I want to put kudos out to them. But TK, unless you know something I don't know, we're on track for the 23rd go live on our new phone system, including our
As
operators.
far as I know, we're still on track. One of our big goals in the design is trying to make it more accessible, make ourselves more accessible to our patients. So we're trying to do that with design, that if they can't reach us immediately, they have another body that they can get to. Also make it easier for the employees to get their voice messages in various forms. And then Sean, I don't have the final confirmation, and I don't know if it was announced previously in the month, but I believe that we are having some success with porting numbers, more so than we initially thought.
Yeah, so Frontier refused to port numbers, but TPX, our new carrier, actually has a relationship with Frontier, so we are porting our numbers. They got them to port our numbers, which is really great. So there's a partnership between Frontier and TPX. I can tell you that it's going to be a change for our community with the one number coming in, but the experience that you're going to have with Seneca is that you get a live body that helps you get where you need to go. That our operator will be answering and will be making sure that people end up where they need to go. When they're calling us, they shouldn't get lost in the phone tree. They should get routed to the place they want to go. And part of our consumerism push is obviously to get a warm body there. Somebody can actually help them.
Is this a new position?
It's been hired, it's 2 months old.
Existing position?
They've actually been helping build the system. So they understand the system. Her name is Daphne. She will be our switchboard operator, and she does everything. Actually, we've been giving her everything under the sun. But it's going to be great when you call in and you actually get a human. It's going to be a little bit more personal.
I see it as a kind of a pressure cooker position, but.
Oh yeah, she's ready though. She's a pressure cooker kind of person.
All right.
So looking forward to what our community thinks about our new feel when they call here. I think it's rowdy. So.
And I have one other question about just going through the Apex. Talked about the high-speed failover.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that is, I think I read DigitalPath.
Yeah.
Are we looking at Starlink to see if that might be a good option?
I'm reticent about Starlink until they launch their next 24. To get business class, so there is a dropout. I have Starlink and there's a dropout.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
not as
I just
bad.
wasn't sure if it'd be the same here.
When it becomes fully what I consider to be business class, then we may consider it. But right now we have Frontier dedicated, and then we've got a fallback to DigiPath with an automatic failover in our servers, by the way. When one fails, it automatically picks up. So we don't have to switch anything. It's a low bandwidth. It's not as speedy as we'd like, but it does create business continuity. And as we move more and more to the cloud, we are going to need that business continuity. So, okay.
Thank you. I was just curious about that.
Yep.
All right, thank you. TK, anything else you want to add? Or anybody else have questions? Thank you.
I did want to add one thing. I just, it's kind of year-end in review, and I just wanted to thank my team, Sarah Timmons and Candace Powell. Yep. They have been enormously flexible and dedicated and creative in the last 3 years, and they've been key in identifying gaps, working in conjunction with Apex in implementing our fixes, supporting our users through these changes, not only technically, but also helping users to grow with just an overall information and understanding, and sometimes emotionally through the changes. And they've been very flexible with all of the projects we've had and the changes in dates or the changes in priorities. So I just wanted to give kudos to my team for being creative, dedicated, and flexible in these last 3 years. This is absolutely a team effort and could not have happened without them.
Kudos.
Great, thank you for that, TK. And thank you to your team. Okay, let's see. Next up, we have our HR report from Jenny, which looks great. I enjoyed the newsletter again. I thought that it was, you guys do a really, really bang-up job on this, really. Anyone have any questions or comments on this? Okay, so then moving on to our marketing and PR report. There's just so much going on, just like there is everywhere else in our organization right now. In here we have our new phone number. We are still going to go with the 833 number, correct?
We are. So the new phone number to Seneca, and it will be on all of our materials, and it'll be in all the phone books. We're going to be actually giving out, I think we do refrigerator things and all kinds of stuff for our community. So the new phone number will be 833-CARE-SHD or 227-3742 in the future. The nice thing is that routes directly in. That's the direct line in, and then we'll have the operator that can get you dispatched to wherever you need to go. Ultimately, we'll have a phone tree if she's not there. It says if you know the party's extension, dial it now, and we're going to get directly to where you need to go. But that'll be the new direct line into Seneca Healthcare.
Perfect, thank you. Anyone have any other questions or comments on the marketing report? Thank you for this, Chelsea. You're on. Okay, then with that, our open session is closed. We'll move into closed session. I think, can we take a 5-minute break?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right, closed session closed. Open session is reopened. There were no reportable actions taken during closed session. Our next regular board meeting will be January 26th at 3 p.m. here in the conference room. We'll continue with the hybrid method. And meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you.